Hello and welcome to another episode of the Popcorn Conspiracy. I'm Dave G, and joining me tonight is my co-host.
Hello everybody, I'm Kyle.
And tonight we're taking a look at the latest documentary to open at IMAX here in Melbourne. It has previously shown in IMAX in America and is continuing to show at IMAX cinemas right around the world. So the movie that we're looking at, or the documentary we're looking at, is called Great Barrier Reef. Now, this is another one of the Australian documentaries. Last year we talked about an Australian documentary that looked at Northern Australia. This is another Australian IMAX documentary that takes a look at the Great Barrier Reef. It takes a look at the creatures that call the reef home, and it takes a look at some of the people that call the reef home as well, and has a look at the damage that it's been happening on the reef over the years, but also looks at the people that are trying to put it back together after all the things that we've seen on the news recently about the bleaching and things like that. This documentary looks at how bad that all is and how it's being put back together. So, mate, I know you love IMAX. Tell us a little bit about what you thought about this new Great Barrier Reef documentary.
I really enjoyed it, dude. It's quite an interesting documentary in that when you hear about Great Barrier Reef, you think it would be just entirely about the creatures or the flora or the fauna of the Great Barrier Reef. But as you say, this one focuses quite a lot on the humans that and what humans are doing for the Great Barrier Reef, like the wildlife warriors and rescue workers and stuff like that, and people who they've dedicated their lives to protecting the reef and the animals within it. And there's quite a lot of focus on that, which I thought was quite. It was a nice change of pace, I thought. There's also, as always, great, beautiful visuals in it, and just a great use of 3D, which is something that I'm always interested in for these IMAX documentaries, these 3D documentaries. I want to see, I want them to really blow me away with how great they look, and this one really did.
Yeah, definitely. I thought this was an absolutely amazing documentary. I love being able to watch documentaries in 3D because it makes you feel like you're actually there. Like I've been snorkeling with places where there's been tropical fish and things like that, and when you actually see it on television, it doesn't match with what the experience is actually like. But this does. I thought it was really interesting. We actually, Kyle and I went to a screening where the director and the producer was actually there, so we learned a little bit about the behind the scenes. But I love the idea that they went and found somebody who, how do I put this nicely, wasn't a boring scientist who just blabbed on for the entire documentary. They actually went and found someone called Gemma Craig, who is a photographer who works on, who lives and works on the Great Barrier Reef, and has actually made her living out of her social networking images that she puts up. But her family also runs a kind of marine park. But it was interesting to be able to hear her talk about the Great Barrier Reef as someone who's lived there, rather than some scientist who might have a political agenda or might bore you senseless for an hour as they blab on about different things that they've discovered.
Yeah, I thought it was great, how much of the documentary was kind of carried by her. I actually thought, one thing I thought was a bit weird, that the movie was, it was narrated by Eric Bana as sort of a voice of God kind of narration.
Yeah, yep.
But not as in a literal voice of God, but I mean that he was the introduction to the documentary, but once it got into it, it focused a lot on Gemma Craig as her reef warrior, and what she was doing, protecting sharks, and she sees it as not sharks, sorry, turtles, and really what she does in the world, and the way that then kind of transitioned into being narrated by her. I kind of thought, well, maybe it should have just been narrated by her entirely, because she really gave that like personal touch to the documentary that like you could tell that this is something that really means a lot to her. And I mean, she's grown up around it her entire life. She's really focused. She's like laser focused on protecting that world. And I thought that it was weird. Just that it was almost like it was about 75% Gemma narrating it with about her personal insight, and about 25% Eric Bana narrating it. It was kind of like you probably just needed Gemma, because she like how interesting she was for it. I thought she really helped the film.
Yeah, and they probably could have saved themselves a little bit on the budget as well if they didn't have Eric Bana doing it. Yeah, I thought even having Eric Bana there was an interesting choice, because I would have expected that they might have gone with someone who is known to be like an eco warrior here in Australia, like maybe someone like Bindi Irwin, or someone from the Irwin family, or if not them, because they kind of make rival documentaries, someone like Beck Hewitt, who is kind of known for her work with the environment. So yeah, it was a little bit of a surprise that Eric Bana did it, but I think, as they said at one of the times during the interview, you have to try and make these documentaries work not only in Australia but also overseas.
I think that might have been.
So I think part of that might have been wanting to be able to put Eric Bana's name on it overseas, because you have to remember that overseas they're up against other IMAX documentaries that we've seen over the years, and we've seen like so many famous people doing these documentaries that I guess it's kind of something that you expect from an IMAX documentary. Like we've seen ones by like Marvel actors and stuff.
Super Dogs, narrated by Chris Evans.
And I'm trying to think of the one that we saw in Canada. That was done by I'm trying to think of his name. Deadpool.
Ryan Reynolds.
Ryan Reynolds, yeah, and Jennifer Lawrence did one as well. So I guess you're kind of competing with those kind of documentaries, and yeah, we look at it here in Australia as this is an Australian documentary, but I guess for them, they've got to go into that big pool overseas and compete against these other documentaries.
Yeah, there were. Well, that was a question that kind of came up during the Q&A as well. But I mean, I didn't notice it so much, but the way that they kind of used more like American units of measurement.
Yeah. And
to explain how big the Great Barrier Reef is, saying that it's from like Texas to Chicago or something.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was kind of it did sound a little weird, like that's something that Americans would get, but it's not really something that Australians would get. And so it's obvious that in that way they definitely have geared this documentary a little bit towards the international audience.
Yeah.
Which is fine. But like, yeah, it is something. You're watching it, you're thinking, but this is ours. This is our land. You know, like, but it's okay. Like, it's just at some point the movie may have they may have made certain decisions in it that are trying to direct it towards the audience that they're hoping to see it, I guess.
One of the things I thought was really interesting during that interview was when somebody asked the question about why there was no mention of the threat to the Great Barrier Reef from the New Adani mine. And the answer given by the producer was that a documentary like this is supposed to educate and not supposed to get political or put a view in there. I thought, yeah, I'm kind of half and half with that, because I thought they could have mentioned it as part of the threats. Like, they didn't have to make it political. They didn't have to stand there and say, oh, we don't support this mine. They could have just said something like future threats to the to it include like Adani or something like that. So yeah, it was very obvious to me that they kind of made this documentary to fit the world market, because Adani's got a lot of international money in it as a mine. So to me, it almost felt like, yeah, we don't really want to piss off like a large organization overseas. So yeah, I thought that part, I'm half and half whether I agree with that or not, seeing that it is something that a lot of people are predicting is going to cause more destruction for the reef. But look, I took a lot away from this documentary. I never really stopped to think before how big the reef is. So like when they start talking about it being thousands and thousands of kilometers in length, I think that puts some perspective in there for people about what exactly the Great Barrier Reef is.
Yeah, it's not just some reefs; it's islands. It's a huge area that is considered part of the Great Barrier Reef.
Yeah.
I think another reason that they give, I agree that it's kind of with the explanation of why not mentioning certain things. I think they had also said that they wanted it to be almost a more timeless documentary. Like that's something that in a few years might even not be an issue, or it might
have destroyed it.
Yeah, or it might be like a foregone thing. It's like, well, yeah, that happened. That happened 10 years ago. Like I think that they really didn't want to date the documentary. I think that might be another one of the main reasons that they didn't bring up that kind of something that's a hot button issue right now. Which that I can agree with. I guess I can agree with that. But yeah, perhaps they could have snuck it in there, kind of more of a generalization kind of way.
Yeah, I thought the part when they talked about one of the biggest threats to the barrier reef is pesticides coming from farming. I thought they could have just slipped a little line in there about the biggest threats are pesticides and mining. Like, you don't actually have to mention the company by name. You could just slip it in there. And because I think like one of the reasons why I really noticed it is I've just watched 2 documentaries about activism here in Australia and about young people getting involved with activism and not the bad kind of activism where you see idiots blocking off city streets, but more the activism like where young people are asking to go and talk to a certain politician and put their views forward, where it was talking about Adani, and it's something that a lot of people in the area are passionate about and a lot of young Australians are passionate about. So it kind of seemed a little bit weird that it just got sidestepped absolutely completely. So, yeah.
Like, there was some talk of like pollution, and I think how global warming can damage the reef.
Yeah.
I think I guess I did like the way that a lot of that talk wasn't done in a real finger waving, you should be ashamed of yourself kind of way.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of other documentaries like this that have really like beaten. You feel like you're being beaten over the head with a message like, no, well, what do you mean you're not using recyclable this, that, and the other? Like we all know pollution sucks, so like it's understandable. But I like that this, to go back to the beginning, it's like, yeah, I like that this really focused on what humans are actually doing to make a change.
Yeah.
And to help the reef.
Yeah, one of my favorite parts of the doco was actually when they looked at that island where 20 years ago the island had been destroyed by tourism, and now it's been put back together by tourism because it's become an eco-friendly resort. But also people who go there actually help out by doing things like going and looking for minke whales and helping scientists do research into different animals. And I thought that part of it was a great part of the documentary, because I think a lot of us have kind of been brainwashed into thinking that tourism is wrecking the reef. And this documentary showed that that's not exactly the case. And in fact, tourism is helping the reef because different tour companies are in charge of different parts of the reef, and they don't want to destroy it because they want to be able to keep taking tourists there. So I thought that was interesting. That was something I learnt from it.
Yeah, that's I hadn't really thought of that. So I was the same, like thinking, oh, we have tourists, pollution, chucking empty bottles overboard, you know. But yeah, like it showed just how much people are actually can help, and it did like change my view on that. And visually, again, the movie was just amazing. Like as you say, you kind of get lost in it. Like the 3D. Like this is what I love with when I see a 3D movie. Like there's so many 3D movies that, I mean, it's kind of died down now, but there are a lot of 3D movies where you're wearing the glasses, you just forget that it's 3D at some point. But with some IMAX documentaries, it's done so well that I kind of find myself like flinching or thinking, oh, there's something buzzing by my eye or something, when like going floating around in the water as they were going through the reefs, and like it felt like it was coming out of the screen, you know, like it was one of those kind of moments, and like I really love that. I love that it was the 3D really did add to making you feel like you were in this world, and it was amazing. Like it was great seeing something like a tiny seahorse giving birth to like its babies on the gigantic IMAX screen. That was nuts.
Yeah,
I thought that was great.
That was interesting and horrifying all in one. So,
it's like, oh my god, there's more of them coming.
So I guess visually I found this to be an absolutely brilliant documentary. As I said before, it was like you were actually diving there with them. Like that's how it actually felt when you were watching it. What did you think of it visually, dude?
Yeah, just I was blown away by it. Like the 3D was so great, and just there was just how beautiful the reefs look, and it's something, as you say, that's not really something that you get on television. You know, like when it really, like the documentary really succeeds in making you feel like you're there, and just giving you this. Just as close to an experience of actually being surrounded by such a beautiful thing as these reefs and these fish and these animals, and even when it was out of the water, it was really well shot and well put together. It was a very, very beautiful documentary, a very beautiful thing.
Definitely. Well, mate, I guess to finish up, what are you going to give this one out of 5?
I'm going to give this one 4.5 out of 5. I really did enjoy it. There's a couple of little things there. Maybe they could have mentioned it. Maybe they didn't need Eric Bana. It sounds like I'm crapping on Eric Bana here. It was great that he was doing it. It's just like, I just thought that, well, they may as well have just had Gemma doing the entire thing because, like, at some point she basically was. But yeah, I'm going to give this one 4.5 out of 5. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm giving it 4 out of 5 as well. I really enjoyed it as well. I thought it was a little bit, felt a little bit messy with having Gemma do some of the voiceover and Eric Bana do some of the voiceover. But like I said, I fully understand why they did that because it's kind of needed for the international market. But 4 out of 5 for me. And I guess that's it for this episode of the Popcorn Conspiracy. 4.5 out of 5 for Great Barrier Reef 3D from Kyle, and 4 out of 5 from me. Go along and check it out at IMAX and see what you think. But for now, I've been Dave G.
And I've been Kyle.
And we'll be back soon with another episode of the Popcorn Conspiracy.